Hello, party people. Welcome to my bedroom. Oh yeah, you hear that song? We're gonna make love all night long.
This was not what I signed up for tonight.
I mean, look, man, we're gonna... What can I say? The PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, the 2003 to 2020 was a very sexy time, don't you think?
Not in your bedroom.
I mean, how do you know? You never been in my bedroom. God damn.
Well, Andre, if you need a few minutes with the listeners, me and Kevin could step out. We can order a pizza or something, and you can do what you got to do, and then we'll come back.
We are all gonna be in my bedroom together, like one happy family. I don't want to hear anything else about it.
You've convinced me. Let's do it. I'm in.
All night long. Okay. So, as the name implies, I say that every time. I don't know why. Yes, I know you guys can see the name as you load this in your podcatcher, but nevertheless, we're here to talk about The Last Generation. Nothing in particular about it, just the life and times thereof, because it was kind of a very interesting time, as every generation is. We don't really have any true plan of how to tackle this, just assorted topics. Whatever happened in those 7 years, we can talk about it. But I guess, Kevin, maybe we should start at the beginning. Well, maybe where this whole thing got ratcheted into high gear was, I suppose, E3 2013. Or I guess we can go a little before that too, but...
That sounds like a great place to start. I think it's worth even talking about before those consoles were announced. It seems to me like the landscape had really changed between the 360 and PS3 generation from the start to the end. Early perceptions, at least in North America, and especially where I was, I know, was that the 360 was the clear leader, and PS3 was almost looked at as more of a niche product, due to its high price point and the difficulty that developers had with the architecture, which was kind of weird coming out of the PS2. And we've talked before on the main show about why Microsoft kind of had that fall from grace gradually throughout the generation. They kind of tried to push it towards more of a family-friendly entertainment box. And then the PS3 wound up picking up quite a bit of steam with some fairly successful mid to late gen exclusives and some fairly smart price drops and hardware revisions. So my question is, was there really a primary reason for the playing field kind of leveling at that point, or was it just death by a thousand cuts for Microsoft? And kind of what impact did that have, bringing us into PS4 and Xbox One?
I personally feel like your assessment is generally correct on that. As you know, from like 2010 to 13 or so, until the new systems hit. Yeah, Sony really brought it. I think Uncharted was starting to become like a thing. I mean, it was a thing from the beginning, but you know what I mean. And, they started to have these games that were really impacting, whether it, I guess at the very end would be The Last of Us, right? And I remember, actually, since you put it that way, Black Friday 2013, I think me and Vin went to a GameStop or something at midnight. Remember when you had to wait till midnight and not like 1 p.m. on Thanksgiving to go to Target or whatever? And this is, of course, before the Rona and the before times. But yeah, I remember that Black Friday, the PS4 had been out for like, I don't know, a week or two, maybe at that point. And people were in that place. I forget what they were selling them for, buying the PS3 bundles with The Last of Us with it en masse. I felt like every single person was there for that. And I was like, wow, people are buying PS3s. This is kind of crazy. Even though the new system just came out, obviously you couldn't really find it. But you know what I mean? So that just sort of sticks in my head. But also, we had never seen a generation last that long before, right? Because, every even sometimes 4 to 5 years. I was going to say 5 to 6 years they get replaced, but it seemed to be that, like, 2010 rolled around and there was like not a single rumor of like an Xbox Next or a PS4 at that point or something. We were hearing nothing. They were just, these systems were just trucking along. And I remember having conversations with friends at the time, like, isn't it kind of weird? We don't really know what the next thing is yet. Turns out we wouldn't know what that is for 3 more years. Did you think that was strange at the time? Like that generation just lasted longer than any previous one?
I don't know that personally. I really even it maybe just because I was getting older. I don't know that it felt longer than previous generations. Thinking about it logically, I know that it certainly did than the generation before that. But I feel like in my mind, PS2 and GameCube and Xbox were around for a lot longer. But that just might be because I was sitting around, in high school picking my nose at the time.
That's right. Yeah, I was God, how old would I have been? I'm getting into my late 20s there. Man, just old man territory, right? Just wondering what's the next thing. But anyway, you're right. That death by 1,000 paper cuts is correct. Microsoft started making every decision that I just didn't like, even right down to permeating the actual like Xbox 360 UI. Remember when they tried to shoehorn Bing into the the UI? That was so desperate. Like I couldn't believe it. Anyway, you're correct, but also the generation lasted so long that it allowed Sony to recover. Whereas like in previous ones where like a generation had that like hard 5-year stop, then Sony wouldn't have.
No, that makes sense. I want to talk about the Red Ring of Death because I think that actually did play a factor in it too. I think that to me and just the perception that I got from people that I was talking to, it felt like that just kind of cheapened the 360 and the Microsoft brand as a whole. Whereas that almost shifted more towards people looking at Sony as being able to produce a more premium product.
Yes, because that is true. They generally do. They have that panache, right? Of that sort of premium space. I think also part of that is just because the two different philosophies. Sony is Japanese, Microsoft is American. They have these two very different, especially when it comes to UI and presentation and like just literal console design, very different philosophies, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Sony has that factor to it. Did you ever Red Ring of Death? Because I did. I bought a Xbox 360 Elite or whenever that came out, the black one, in spring 2007. At the beginning of 2011, that thing red ringed on me. I was playing Phantasy Star Universe and it finally went boop. And I was like, oh no, it's my turn. And of course I was out of warranty at that point, so I had to buy the Slim.
Now, did they? Maybe I'm misremembering. I thought they basically did indefinite warranty for Red Ring of Death at that point. Did they not?
3 years. So I was out of range. Yeah,
right.
Because I wanted to get this into my first Xbox 360 Elite broke before the summer was over. Like I said, I brought it in spring. I was playing Blue Dragon. All of a sudden, like this crazy motor sound started happening out of my disk drive, and then the disk drive never spun. So I played like Xbox Live Arcade games for like a few months until I could send in the thing to get repaired, because it's like, I don't know if they didn't believe. I was like, this thing doesn't work. You know what I mean? So yeah, anyway, that was a thing too.
That would have been when they were doing the summer of arcade marketing though, right? So that's relatively fitting.
Yeah, but there's only so much I can play like Braid or whatever before
really got the summer of arcade.
Andre was also stuck playing Rise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that sucked.
I don't know what that is, and I should probably never find out. I remember playing a lot of Geometry Wars. That's all I can tell you.
I Red Ring to Death a little bit sooner because I actually bought my 360 used in 2008. Early 2008, and it was about mid 2009 when mine shit the bed.
Yeah, you did note this a little bit, but I also just kind of wanted to reiterate that, yeah, like in here, 360 was a much bigger success than it was around the world. It's not that other places didn't buy it, except Japan, but like in Europe, PlayStation has been king basically since PS1. And that wasn't, and the PS3 was no exception either. It's not that they didn't buy 360s. It's just that, we bought so many 360s. It was kind of not exactly the same, but kind of an N64 situation where like it was very popular in the US and Canada and Mexico and basically nowhere else. You know what I mean? So we basically bought all the N64s. Yeah, we didn't buy all the 360s, but we bought a majority of them.
What do you think the reason for that is, that Microsoft just had a heavier marketing push for 360 in America than Europe?
I think the original Xbox was kind of a seed, even though like it didn't do super well. Like, well, nothing was going to against the PS2 anyway, but like it hit something among a certain sect of people. And then the 360, I think that's why they didn't wait too long. I mean, 360 only came out 4 years later, right? So it's like they really knew what they were doing. We can get on the next generation real early. I think being first really helped Microsoft.
Well, let's move on into the announcement of these consoles and kind of some early marketing. The story of Xbox or Microsoft's major stumble right out of the gate is very well documented, so I won't drag that out too long. But I am curious what you guys think about how much of an impact Sony really capitalizing that on at the time, and kind of making passive aggressive digs at them really had long term on public perception.
It was so damaging. Maybe it took the entire generation to go away, right? Because it's like, oh, Microsoft wants to, you know what I mean? Like, even though they ditched Kinect, they ditched everything real early. It was just like that stink lingered the entire time. It didn't go away till practically until the Xbox Series X and S were coming out. Like, but looking back on it, it's really funny how 0% of people on Earth thought that Microsoft DRM stuff was a good idea. You usually always have like a little bit of fanboy contingent for anything, no matter how bad an idea it is. This nobody liked. Like the Fallout meme, everyone disliked that. Like literally everyone disliked that. It's kind of, in this day and age where we can't get anybody to agree on fucking anything, right? It's funny that moment in time, 100% of people were like, nope. Not even the fanboys who were like, oh, this is actually good, and I'll tell you why. Watch my, hour-long YouTube video about it. No, there was not a single person.
Even beyond just the always online DRM thing, I really didn't see any positive reception towards them really positioning it as a multimedia box and the heavy focus on TV integration and movie. Nobody got excited about that either.
No, nobody got excited when Nintendo had, what was it called? TV, right? Like,
oh,
no
God.
thanks.
Poor Reggie standing there going, I'm going to watch Breaking Bad with my friend Bill Trinan.
Wait a second. We don't watch that stuff at Nintendo? No way. We're going to watch Sesame Street. But, like, Steve, how much did Reggie just stay up like the night before that press conference being like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to talk about this. This is stupid. This isn't going to work. Like,
so much of that. But, oh, my God.
Can you imagine? Like, if I were Reggie, I'd be sweating bullets. I'd be like, this is going to suck. And I'm just going to have to get up there and eat it. Anyway.
Miiverse, guys. Please. Somebody.
It's like the Me channel, except, what? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, so kind of moving on from that DRM discussion, the fallout from that really seems to have persisted, and nobody's made a real outward push to try and do that again. Everybody knows that those companies would love to move in that direction. But there hasn't been a major public initiative. What do you guys think that the move towards always online and locking copies to, digital accounts or your specific console? What does that look like moving forward?
I don't outwardly hate it just as an idea, because the thing was about that Microsoft stuff is that like not all of their ideas were bad. It was just tied up in that DRM. Wasn't there stuff about like sharing games digitally with people or something like that? Or wasn't there was other features in there that they had to scrap? Wasn't there, Steve?
Well, there was, but they never really detailed it. There was like, you can even share games, but they never really described what that would be like. So that could have easily just have been something where it went by the wayside and we're all sitting there for 5 years wondering how we could possibly share these games with each other.
I don't know that that's necessarily specific to having that license locked to an account, though. Like they kind of have a similar thing on PlayStation where you can jump in and kind of take control of somebody's. I know it's not the same thing where you can like temporarily transfer the license, but I don't think that I don't know if why does it need to be locked to your account to be able to have that functionality?
I suppose it doesn't. I guess just to make absolutely sure that you are the owner of this game or whatever, like they're trying to. I mean, maybe I guess it doesn't, right?
Whatever good idea Microsoft had with that, it wasn't communicated well enough, because the next day, with clearly no planning at all, Sony had that whole how to share your games thing in like that was about 30 seconds long, and that was it.
I always wondered where they filmed that. Like, was it just in some back room at E3? Was it like behind the Sony booth or something, like in some little office and at the LA Convention Center? I always wonder where they did that. But anyway, yeah, it was over, man. It was fucking over. This is the only generation that was over before it started. We knew who was going to win. Wii U wasn't burning up anything except people's wallets and minds. And like, this happened. So it was just like, okay.
I don't know that I agree when you say that the impact that had right off the hop really lasted throughout that entire generation. I definitely think that it put them in an underhanded situation to begin with, but I think they could have recovered from that definitely a lot better than they did. There's a lot of other issues that were very severe with that platform, moving on throughout the years, other than just shitty marketing early on as well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. It was shitty marketing. I'm not saying that was like the only factor, but to me, it was the predominant one. It just got them off on such a bad foot and such, what's opposite of goodwill? Bad will with the public.
There was bad will abound for sure.
It was very bad will. But you mentioned the not just the DRM, but the disastrous press conference, TV, movies, Call of Duty, whatever they just kept repeating over and over, right? It became the biggest meme in the world. In retrospect, what made them do that? Because look, Sony on the PS4, you could buy movies and you could watch TV. Remember, they had their own TV service for a while, right? They didn't make a big deal about it. Like Microsoft went so hard on Kinect. Oh, you can do this with your voice and gestures and blah, blah, blah. So if you have a mic plugged into your PS4 and it's listening to you, you can say, hey, PlayStation, boot, whatever, and it'll do it. Like, you have voice command on PlayStation as well. So it's not even that it was an exclusive feature, but just like Microsoft went so hard on pushing it. What made them do that? That's the thing to this day, I don't understand, Steve.
See, I think at this point we were like approaching the tail end of the OMG streaming boxes part of technology, because, Netflix and Hulu, we're finally getting to be a big deal. Roku boxes were starting to hit everybody's homes. And somewhere in Microsoft's marketing, they said, oh shit, we need to pump this shit up, because you picked up the Wii U box the year before, and instead of showing off games, guys, there's Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime streaming apps on the back of this thing. Whoop-de-fucking-do.
It was a big deal, man. You can watch, you can watch Netflix on your PlayStation, bro. Whoa.
And all that kind of became useless in about another year anyway, because I think even that year or a year later, Amazon Fire Stick happened. So why bother? And then, like, even one or two iterations in of that, Alexa became integrated into it. So all that you could tell your Xbox what you wanted to play became pointless when I could just tell Alexa, open app and play whatever right now. I'm like, what? I don't know. Someone at Microsoft wants to watch movies on their Xbox.
I partially agree with that, but I do think at that time when these consoles launched, that still for me would have been a selling point. Definitely, I was still watching, Netflix and YouTube through consoles at that point. We definitely smart TVs was not a thing then, and we were. A little bit before the streaming boxes and like proper integration for these things in a little bit more of a finesse way.
I did a lot of MLB TV on my Xbox 360. I'll tell you that much. You know what I mean? It was definitely useful for sure.
Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between saying, yeah, hey, you can get an app for Hulu and for Netflix and for YouTube, and saying, hey, we've like making this huge deal about we've got this dedicated HDMI in jack and you can record these shows, and like the endless droning about voice integration. I think that the driver behind them making that much of a push with it was because I think they were frankly surprised when the Kinect on 360 did gangbusters. That thing sold way more than I think anybody expected it to. And I think Don Matrick has a one-track mind, and he saw that and he got his little hooks in it, and he I don't think he really at that point gave a shit about the video game market. He just gave a shit about, trying to make a splash internally at Microsoft. So I think that coupled with the fact that Microsoft's always been fairly transparent, especially around kind of the original Xbox and the 360 era, that they want to infiltrate the living room and kind of permeate into every area of entertainment in the home that they can. And so to me, I think a lot of it was just more of a push from Microsoft as a whole, as opposed to just the Xbox division in itself doing that.
Yes, I mostly agree with that. It's just, I don't know, as far as like the Kinect and like the family friendly stuff, they should have saw what was happening with the Wii U already to know that moment has passed. You know what I mean? I didn't think if they weren't doing it, then Nintendo fumbled the ball in other ways, but like it's clear whatever that Wii market, that casual market, was like over it. So like I never thought like Kinect being carried to the next thing would have ever worked in any capacity. Well, even if it was just low key, oh, this is something you could do sometimes, then nah, I just wasn't feeling it. But there is one other thing about this sort of, Microsoft fucking up or whatever. Like, and so there is a perception that it was Sony's to lose, right? That they just had to waltz in, not be Microsoft or Nintendo, and just win, which they kind of did. But honestly, I disagree with that to a degree as well, because Sony won because they delivered on like fucking everything. Everything they showed in those initial like press conference, like I talk about it all the time. I think one of the most game-changing things there ever has been in the last decade is the way they made the DualShock 4 no more select and start, share and options. Perfect. And then you have the touchpad that you can press. And, you could say whatever, how much we use the actual touchpad to touch things rather than just a glorified button. Fine. But like integrating social media on that level just hadn't been done yet. And they were so forward thinking with it. Now you could say like all the other systems, everyone was just going to go that direction. Maybe. But like, I just thought that was so game changing. Well, you mentioned earlier, Kevin, the share play where you can like, you know what I mean, get in someone's party, and then like that works flawlessly. Like whether you just want to watch someone play something or play it with them, that doesn't naturally have online multiplayer, only local multiplayer. Me and Ven played so much. God, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, most indie games only have local, right? Like we use that a lot. No, it's not perfect, right? The frame rate gets cut or whatever, depending on your connection or whatever, of course, but it's something you can just play Spelunky with people online.
I never thought I would see you just slough off and be like, well, the frame rate gets cut, but whatever.
I mean, literally, okay, what kind of connection would you need to like be able to watch someone play, Ziggurat 2 at 120 frames a second? Like I don't think it's gonna work.
I agree, and I think it would be fine. I just feel like that for you, I would have expected it to be a birthday party leaving level offense.
Well, look, for something that just works free over the internet, it's hard to complain too much. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying it's a feature that really worked exactly how they promised. Like Steve was saying earlier, how long would it have taken Microsoft to implement, blah 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 with those nasty DRM. Sony just did it and it worked. Streaming from the console, whether to Twitch or whatever, that just worked. The VR, yeah, they don't have I remember when they had communities for like games. I don't know if you remember this, like they got rid of it in like sometime in like 2018, 19, but like you could make communities for games, like anything. Almost like sort of Miiverse like, where because like I'm even the most obscure shit. I remember playing remember the Godzilla game for PS4? I remember going in there and saying, "See, look at the communities for these games," and like people just wrote crazy shit in there. It was weird. I remember there was like a community called Godzilla's Life. I don't know why it was called that.
This is just full of Godzilla orgy fan fiction in here.
The life of Godzilla, and life was capitalized. Godzilla's life. It was weird. I don't. Yeah, man. Anyway, I just wanted to take that moment to praise Sony for what they did do right, because it's not just they didn't fuck up. They did everything great. Not literally everything, but you know what I mean.
I want to just back that point up a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't deliver on the promise, because I agree with that thought. I do think when they were first marketing the PS4, there was a lot more of a push on social integration, like social media integration, than what wound up actually happening. And I know obviously that's certainly a thing now, and it's much more prevalent than it was at that time. But I think just when in that early marketing, it felt to me like they were really banking on that being a truly key feature, and I don't feel like that never quite materialized the way that they envisioned it. Is that fair?
I don't know, because like you know how like any game you load it up, right? You can see the latest stream, see if people are streaming it right now from PlayStation and like all that shit. You know what I mean? All that shit's pretty well integrated. I'm not sure how much people care about it, but it's all there, and people do clearly use it. I see it on the most obscure games, right? So
yeah, I think in their mind it was going to become more of a community based thing where people actually use that UI as a platform where they were going to become the Facebook of video games for the time or whatever. Whereas to me, it did turn, because Twitch became so prolific not that long after that Twitch integration was much more key there than was really having the kind of that community based, like everything is integrated into that necessarily.
If you want a side story to this, which we're not prepared for, we could talk about the rise and fall of Mixer. Like that was a whole. I just forgot. I forgot about that till just now. Like honestly. Okay, just real quick. Maybe we should have started with this if we were a more prepared show. But we're just here talking. We're just three guys. What made you get the consoles that you got? So in this generation, because like, I guess I'll just start. So I chose the 360 over the PS3, the last generation. Even though I was more excited for PS3, it just became clear that 360 was where it was going to be at for me. Microsoft sort of pissed me off, as I stated previously, and I wasn't completely out of the Sony game because I had a PSP, which I got in like 2009 when they released like the PSP 3000, because I hated the original model. And I hated that shit more, Kevin, than like a GBA SP or something. Like I thought that was one of the worst handheld models there is, that PSP 1000. Anyway, but so that ended up being the Trojan horse for me. Ended up being the PlayStation Vita, a system God damn, I love that thing, guys. Like something that it really did well that gets forgotten now is the cross-buy that it had for like most indie stuff and sometimes not so indie stuff. That was just really cool. You buy it on PS4, you get the PlayStation Vita version or vice versa. A lot of these games had cross save as well. Especially, I remember Binding of Isaac, I don't know, whenever it was, September, October, I think 2014. It not only fresh to PS4, the console version was fresh to PS4, but it was a PlayStation Game of the Month, so it was free for that and Vita. It had cross save. It was excellent. It was so cool. I thought, this is the future. Nothing's ever going to beat this. Me playing Binding of Isaac on 2 consoles. You mean I could play a console game at home and on the go? Wow. I wonder who's going to think of that next. So, just no, but I don't know, man. It was just the best to me. I know you guys weren't Vita people, but if you were, and especially if you had one for that year and a half time before the PS4, that was it for you, because they really primed you for that experience. And honestly, they delivered. The Vita wasn't super successful, obviously, but those in those first few years, especially with those games that really were cross-buy, and even the ones that weren't, the Vita was my Trojan horse into PS4. I honestly was never really made any moon eyes at the Xbone, really. And of course, Wii U, LOL, right? So,
I did PS4 first for sure as well, and that was always kind of the primary console of the two that generation. And I think for all of the reasons that we just talked about, it seemed like that's where what the public was interested in. That's what the hype was around. That's what my friends, that's where my friends were going to be playing. That's probably where the best software exclusives quite likely were going to go as a result. It just seemed like a sexier platform overall. And I was a little bit put off by Microsoft's arrogance and kind of their push for this family friendly market. I just really didn't have interest in having a machine with Kinect hooked up all of the time, or even being told that it needs to be hooked up all of the time. I did wind up picking up an Xbox after the fact, and not until they came out with the first version that didn't ship with a Kinect, and they took away that forced requirement.
Oh my god, it shipped with a Kinect. I fucking forgot it did that. Oh my god.
And you couldn't even unplug the Kinect and use the console at the time.
Oh my lord, I fucking forgot about that. Wow, that was such a bad idea.
I remember seeing my friend Stockton that did the PC gaming show with me. You go over to his house, and he had Xbox One early on, and he had his Kinect just bundled up and shoved behind the entertainment stand just so that the Xbox would run, with like a fucking towel wrapped around it so it wasn't spying on him. So even when I got an Xbox, it was only going to be for the big platform exclusives that I wanted to play that weren't coming on PS4. PS4 was going to be the primary until Game Pass came along. That was kind of a late cycle game changer. That being said, by the end of that generation, and I only had the original models of both PS4 and Xbox One. The Xbox One felt definitely sluggish in comparison. The PS4 still felt relatively snappy, other than not having SSD in comparison to what we're used to now. But the UI and everything seemed like it worked much better. It almost seems to me like Microsoft banked on their fans being, quote unquote, loyal enough to at least buy the S model, if not the X model of the Xbox One, which, I mean, buying an early model, you don't want to feel like that. And I never felt like that with PS4. It was like, if you get the PS Pro, great, or the PS4 Pro, great, but you're not feeling left in the dust, which I kind of felt like Microsoft had a little bit more of that vibe going on.
Are you telling me you bought an Xbox One to play Quantum Break? Admit it right now on Fine Time. Admit it.
I did not buy an Xbox to play Quantum Break.
Okay.
I knew Halo was going to have a new one, not expecting that Halo 5 was going to be as absolute trash as it was. That was definitely a driver.
You're the only one I know who hates this game. Not that I know a whole lot of Halo people, but yeah.
It was easily a low point in the series.
Okay. Steve, your path through this generation, obviously it's not the same as ours.
Guys, the year was 2012. I'm unemployed. My Wii hasn't read discs in months. Things with the X are getting a little strained. I spent this generation on the Wii U and 3DS, no matter how bad an idea this was.
I mean, I'd say I'm sorry, but we all make our decisions in life. I guess
I knew what I was getting more or less what I was getting myself into. I really wanted to play Pikmin 3 whenever that was coming, and that was really worth it, along a bunch of other things. I just, Wii U, 3DS, the occasional Xbox, and PS4 at other people's places as I've been before. I mean, guys, I'm here for decoration today. Aren't I pretty?
Oh, you're beautiful. You do something with your hair. I mean, I'm telling you, it's
Yeah, some more fell off. You think it looks good?
yeah, I like it. Really
Yeah.
good working for you.
I feel very sad when you talk about the Wii disc drive dying and problems with an ex-girlfriend at the same time. That's some heavy business to go together.
Well, that was the second time the Wii stopped reading discs, and then when I running through the diagnostic on the support, like, yeah, this will cost $85 to fix after shipping. Nah, we'll just wait for the next one.
Oh, you
I will
waited.
play. I will play WiiWare and Virtual Console for the rest of the year, along with Game of the Year 2012 Kid Icarus Uprising, an opinion that me and only me has.
I'm sorry, Nintendo's making me depressed. Maybe we should take a break. Let's take a break. We need to refresh. Let's wash the Nintendo off of us. I don't know why I'm so concerned with washing on this show, washing stuff off of us, but let's do it together. All right, we're back. We all took a shower together. Not that it was any of your business, but, you know. Oh, man, can you imagine the three of us in one regular size I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, that's someone's fetish. I don't know whose, but, I mean, there's just not a whole lot of room to maneuver.
That's like taking 3 containers worth of Play-Doh and trying to shove it into one Play-Doh container.
Full disclosure, my shower fits one person, so we certainly didn't do it in my shower.
No, I said it was mine. I gave up the information. I put my own information on blast. Okay, I guess we can talk about video games now. We're all dried off. So, what's next, Kevin? I guess one of the bigger characteristics of his generation was we finally made that digital shift. I mean, we've been trying for a while before that, right? But this generation, we did it.
Yeah, I think that was kind of one of the defining characteristics of this generation, because not only did it change how we bought games, I think it changed what games we were buying substantially, because so many people changed the way they were buying games. It became more acceptable to start loading up on goodies that were on 75% off sales and things like that.
But even, well, I'll just speak for me. Like, when the PS4 first came out, I did still buy physical games. I as much as I could. In fact, I don't think I bought anything that wasn't physical, at least like a real video game on the shelf. You know what I mean? Not like, Resogun or something that doesn't have like a, you know what I mean? But like outside of that stuff, I think when it finally started breaking me big time was some of the live service stuff or otherwise stuff that I'm going to be playing a long time, like Destiny. I remember thinking, like, I don't know why I'm going to go get a disc of that. I'm going to play that every goddamn night. So, like, why would I, you know what I mean? Who cares? So I bought stuff like that. Destiny, Overwatch. I bought, like, digitally. You know what I mean? Like, any of that kind of stuff. And then over time, as I installed I think 2 terabyte drive in my PlayStation 4, I said, fuck it. I'm not buying discs anymore. I mainly did it because of the space. You know what I mean? You actually had to have that be a concern. That's why I bought Switch cartridges for like 2017 and 18 as well, just because I was like, I don't have the space to be downloading all these games. But then when I got the 400 gig at micro SD card, I'm like, fuck it. I'm downloading everything now. So it was space as well, I guess. Was that it for you too? I don't know if you ever modded your PS4 to like have a bigger hard drive or anything, but like, you know what I mean? It just made sense once we had the space to do so.
Yeah, I got an external drive for my PS4. It's interesting when you talk about the convenience factor for something you're going to be playing ongoing, and I hadn't really thought about that. But the turning point for me when I finally decided I think I'm going to start predominantly buying things digitally was when New Horizons came out, and it was the exact same thought path as, I'm going to be playing this, for months. Often, I don't want to be switching it out, for other games constantly. So that maybe that was when I think about what predominantly caused the rise of digital purchases. I think of it more as being, they force you into the not forced, but you enter into paid subscriptions to be able to play online, and then with those paid subscriptions they give you 2 free games a month, and then all of a sudden you already have this digital library, and just that idea of it already starts feeling fragmented. So why not, you're already not in a fully physical environment because you're getting those free games. And I think that's what I would have assumed incentivized people primarily. But maybe that convenience factor, maybe you're onto something there.
Yeah, for me it was convenient. Steve, what was it for you? I mean, I know you still buy physical games, obviously, but
I'm still predominantly buying physical games, but if the things go on a deep discount, I'm come on, I'm $5 to $10 versus 50 to 60, of course. But I've fallen into the I say fallen like it's bad. I'm into the convenience pit too. Like as recently as Animal Crossing and Clubhouse games, like, yep, those are digital. I'm going to be logging into those a bunch, and I don't want to be swapping out the cartridge every time I want to load up my town and go fishing and go visit another person's town. And for a more recent example, Live Alive and Xenoblade 3 I'll be buying game cards. Splatoon 3 I'll probably be downloading. I mean, it's a lot of convenience for more recent games.
I feel like I could admit this on this show. I have really contemplated double dipping on Splatoon 2 several times over the last few years just so I didn't have to use the card anymore. Now, I'm not going to do that now because Splatoon 3 is coming out, but you know what I mean? It entered my mind many times. Like, I just don't want to,
Well, that was when it first started being a panda behind from like, yeah, I mean, this is the fun, but I have other games I want to play, and I don't want to get up all the way over there to the stack, and because I'm a fat ass and I'm lazy.
So Steve, when I talk about that feeling of all of a sudden your collection or whatever is fragmented, do you ever get that feeling like, why do I continue to keep buying physical games when I have so many digital games already? Like I'm fighting an uphill battle trying to maintain this physical thing, or is that just me?
I have a system. I'm losing against. I feel like I'm losing, but I feel like I clear a good number of games a year. So I get through what I need to do. I feel.
I just
It's the pile.
Oh God, I haven't heard of the pile in a long time.
Can't pile fucking digital games.
I didn't say it.
We knew.
No,
you were
I'm not.
thinking
I'm not putting this one on you yet. Not in public, anyway. I just remembered actually. I actually had the disc of Overwatch to begin with because Vin got it for me for my birthday. It came out May 2016 because I wasn't going to buy it because I was being a dick. So like he got it for me. He's like, fine, fucker. He got it for me as like half a troll present. So like the first, I don't know, year and a half of me playing Overwatch, I had a disc, and then I gave that disc to a friend, and then I bought the digital version because it was on sale for $20 or something like that. So he could play with us. I gave him my disc, and then I bought myself the digital one. So I guess I didn't always have that digitally. But anyway, I guess we're all not too far off from the same.
But before we move on from talking about the shift from physical to digital, there's one, and I guess I'm coming at this from more of that collector mentality. To me, the idea now of owning a physical game and thinking about it in terms of, I want to have this forever so that in 15 or 20 years I can pop it into the system and play it. That's kind of broken as well because of the ever escalating reliance on patches and updates. I mean, if there's never going to really be a definitive version of like the stage that game was patched, especially when we start talking about things like Final Fantasy 15, where they're like heavily patching how gameplay even works in some chapters. Having that disc at that time, if you can't access it online anyways, kind of negates the point.
I just think it's silly to have a physical version of any online game, especially if it's multiplayer. It's silly to have a disc of Overwatch or Destiny 2 or something like that. It doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? To me, anyway. Who cares? The whole game is online. You're just authentic, whatever, right? It doesn't matter how much you patch Destiny. You're never going to be able to play it offline. Now, I don't know. Maybe when those games run their course, maybe they will patch them just to play offline by yourself. Maybe they will. Who knows? I'm just saying that, like, as of right now, that's silly. And then you'll still have to be beholden to the internet to even download that patch, right? So...
yeah, for sure. As live service games have increased in popularity, that definitely reduces the need for physical versions as well.
I swear to God, I didn't plan that as a segue, but that is what I wanted to talk about next, actually. Well. Yeah, like live service games. Because to me, whether it's been the loot shooters like Destiny or the Division, whether it's like the multiplayer Overwatch, Rocket League, Warframe, whatever, the live service model to me is the defining ethos of last generation. To me, that was the real thing. Like, whether even like old series coming back, like whether it be Borderlands or Ghost Recon or whatever, they all adopted this strategy just because it made so much sense. And there's just something that goes beyond like pushing a certain frame rate or fidelity or whatever we can do with the new hardware. There's always a gameplay innovation too that comes along, typically in any generation. And to me, this is it. So like, I've talked about this a lot on Fine Time before, like the live service games, especially the loot shooting ones, are basically my favorite games of the last generation. So like, I want to know from you guys first, though. Let's start with Steve. What games of this type, if you will, did you get into and why? And like how, I guess you could also say how you generally feel about this gameplay / business model, but which ones do you like, Steve?
The one I've sunk the most significant amount of time to is easily Rocket League. Something about it struck me when it first came out on PlayStation and Xbox, and then when it came out on Switch, I just bought it right away, sunk about a bazillion more hours into it. I'm still playing it a little bit, but I've scaled back a bit to do the backlog. But it's an okay business model, but for the right kind of game. But I could see how it could get out of hand for others. There's a time investment involved, and if you're willing to play other games, it's not for everyone. But yeah, there's a place for it in the industry, of course.
I do want to expound upon that, but I want Kevin to go first, talk about which ones he did or did not play.
Yeah, I'll preemptively say I find nothing offensive about that model, whether it be, free to play or a paid game. I've never really got into any of those games in the way they're intended. I've mentioned before, I played Destiny 1 and 2 both, and they got to play through until, the quote unquote end, right? Where you play until the final boss of what they consider the campaign, and then dropped it when really that's kind of when the real game is meant to start. For me, the idea of playing one thing with no like real end goal in mind just doesn't really fit with what I always want to like move on to the next game and the next shiny thing. So just like having one thing that I play for, indefinitely, especially with the online aspect added to it, just doesn't appeal to me personally necessarily.
I somewhat agree, and obviously don't agree, sort of, I guess, because obviously I really like playing Destiny a lot or something, but I think I disagree with the part where like you have to like you need to sink that kind of time in it, because you don't. You played Destiny and Destiny 2, I think, and you just played the campaign and that was it. I think that's perfectly fine way to go about it. You don't have to do the other stuff. You can just play those as like, here's a game beginning to end that you can maybe play with friends or not, if you want to or not. And that's it, because I think that's perfectly valid. Now, is that maybe a little short for your $60, now $70? Maybe. But like, I think if you and I or Steve or whoever, got on and played the Division 2 and we just played quote unquote the campaign, I think you would find that to be like a $60 experience. Obviously, you're going to pay $3 for it now, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't think you would have been upset doing that, you know? So I think that's the thing to not lose about the live service game is that, like, yeah, whether even if it's something that's free to play, like Rocket League is now or Warframe or whatever, even if you just log on and do like a little bit of stuff, I think that's okay too. I think the fact that, not that you were necessarily saying this, but they're not all a time sink unless you want them to be, right? I think that's a misconception people have, is that like, oh, I don't want to play the same thing forever, because that's why I don't like when the fighting games try to do that. Here's season 3 of our fighters. Here's season 7 of our bikini like skins or whatever. I don't want to play the same fighting game for 7 years. That's so fucking boring. Like, I'm sorry. Like, maybe that's just me. I liked in the 90s when we had like a new fighting game every 3 to 6 months to play from whoever, Capcom, SNK, whatever. That's the way it should be to me. Even if those updates are somewhat incremental, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to play Street Fighter 6 or whatever until 2027 or whenever they decide to keep pushing it or beyond. You know, that's where that starts to lose me personally.
Yeah, I guess I don't think about it as much as a time sink as for some reason I want to, in my head, like compartmentalize these experiences as an experience, as like a defined experience.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe PSO2 will be. I get that maybe that's a little bit different than what we're kind of talking about here, but maybe that'll be the one.
But that's my favorite kind of game, where you can really dig in there and get as deep or not deep as you want. Go in there and play a few hours or a few thousand hours, you know? So I'm looking forward to that. But I guess we talked about this a little bit already, but let's expound upon the detractors of this live service model. People call them money pits or microtransaction hell or whatever. I typically find these claims to be fairly unfounded. Obviously, there are bad business practices everywhere, but what do you guys think? Why do you think, Steve, live service has become a bad word for people?
Not to start defending the suits or anything, but guys, did you know that it costs money to make video games?
No way, dude.
Yeah. So in order to make their money back, they either need to charge for the video game or charge for things in the video game. So that's what they do with these live service games. So certain things might get ridiculous, like the $5,000 horse they tried for that one time, or I might be imagining that. But
what? What the hell just happened?
Didn't someone try selling a ridiculously expensive like rainbow horse?
I think like Dynasty Warriors games had some horse DLC. I don't remember it being ridiculously expensive, though. Maybe it was. I didn't buy it.
There was the horse armor from Oblivion that was famous in early DLC.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. You could buy horses in like Samurai Warriors and shit, though, for the record.
But I think horse armor was like $5, not 5,000.
I am thinking of something that's remarkable. Anyway, there's some people, and there is something to it where, yes, they're concerned it's gonna feed into, you know, the impulse to just buy all these things, especially when they feature loot boxes for sale. And, you know, Europe's already cracking down on that, so I guess there's a point, and it might even come to a head if they need to start streamlining the process anyway, but I think that's where it's coming from. A lot of these games are perfectly playable as is if you just play and put time in anyway, if you really want fancier things. I have way too many fancy hats and not hats for my cars in Rocket League and different finishes and things that I mostly got just by playing the game. I don't really sink that much money and didn't sink that much money into it. I mean, it's really up to you, the player, at home.
I have almost every skin in Overwatch. It's embarrassing to say that, but I do. I just played that long where I just keep opening the loot boxes and I keep getting them all. It's just a thing.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think, and there certainly are bad actors there. I think even, and correct me if I'm wrong, I remember hearing in early Overwatch days that there was some pretty heavy accusations of the way they handled loot box being predatory, which I think has been kind of addressed and fixed since then. But for the most part, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I will never find cosmetics in a loot box predatory. That's just me. People can disagree with that. I just, nothing in there is pay to win or you have to buy them or whatever. It's just you either get stuff out of a box or you don't. It's fine. That's just my feeling on it. But go ahead.
Mm-hmm. For the most part, I really get this like Jack Thompson, video games are killing our kids vibe from kind of this sensationalism over microtransactions. It just seems like a lot of this is coming from, soccer moms or, an article in today's Parent magazine or whatever that's making these accusations of it being predatory, when in many cases, I agree. I don't think it's warranted necessarily.
Yeah, I think it's much ado over nothing as a lot of these things are. Yeah, there's stuff in the video game industry that is fairly predatory. I just don't think that like the idea of a live service game on the surface is. I just think that's silly. But
if your fucking kid spent $750 in one evening on, free spins on Farmville or whatever on your iPhone, that's not Farmville's fucking fault.
Sure isn't, but we want to make it so, right?
Kid's dumb.
What's the funniest failure, though? Live service failure? Anthem, right? Maybe Anthem, the Star Wars Battlefront 2. Maybe that was the most funny. Avengers is pretty funny. I wouldn't call it like a total failure, but it did get a lot of shit, right? I guess Anthem, maybe just for me, because I was actually looking forward to Anthem until they had the beta in early 2019, and then me and Vin tried it because I dragged him into it, and we were like, oh boy, this is a little rough. You know what I mean? It's like let's wait till it comes out, and then it came out, no boy, right? So that to me, I guess it's Anthem, just because I was personally invested in that being good, and it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Those are interesting examples, because I think those are the things that leave a bad taste in my mouth. Because usually when things like big budget games that magnificently blow up like that, we usually wind up getting a peek behind the curtain 6 months or a year down the road. And it seems like it always turns out to be upper management sticking their fingers where it didn't belong and making shitty decisions. So it's a sad story quite often.
Obviously, yeah.
You guys want to hear a really funny story?
Sure do.
Did you guys know the Wii U had one of these?
What was it called?
It was called Lost Reavers, and it was published by Bandai Namco.
Have I ever heard of this? I'm not weeb enough to have heard of this. What is this?
Now, did they not? I think they also forced a demo on everybody's.
Yes, they sent all of us demos.
Oh my god!
Yes,
they really want you to play this.
And you know what? It was perfectly fine, but it was on the Wii U.
So it was actually like okay. It wasn't like a disaster of a game.
It wasn't a disaster of a game, but it was on the Wii U, and I don't think enough people played it. Otherwise, they might have, snuck it onto Switch.
Yeah, that's man. It feels like this is something I heard about at the time for like 5 seconds. I read some blurb about, and then just never thought about again.
It came out the same year as Splatoon, and as you know, Splatoon 2 came out months after the Switch did. So
yeah,
clearly people are paying attention to what's what.
My Lost Reavers demo still has that gift wrap that shows up on downloaded software before you play it for the first time. So.
I thought only 3DS did that. Wii U did it as well? Okay. Wow, they really just shared those UI elements, huh? Yeah, Anthem again for me, just because I was just such a fucking clown. I'm like, oh, this is going to be so cool. It looked cool. You know what? And like you were saying, Kevin, with the expose on like we always find out upper management and shit, BioWare fucked that up too, as we found out with the expose. I don't know if you ever read Jason Schreier's big report about it.
I did.
The big thing that my takeaway from the Anthem report is that they weren't allowed to talk about Destiny, even though that's exactly what they were making. That with Destiny was a bad word in the office. You weren't allowed to say Destiny.
See, I don't know what I took out of that article was the biggest problem it had was they really shoved the Frost engine down their throat when it was not the right thing to be using there.
Yeah. Obviously it wasn't gonna, that was a terrible idea. obviously, but just like, even so, even if it had technical problems, know the game you're making and know that you're ripping off Destiny and admit it and embrace it. Don't just sit there. It's like, no, we're not doing that, even though we totally are. Come on, man. Anyway, just real quick to cap off the live service stuff. Lately in this generation so far, there's been some high profile flops. Babylon's Fall, for one. Battlefield 2042. You could even say Destruction All Stars is just not popped for anybody, right? Do we think a breaking point for this model is coming if we just keep seeing these mediocre, like nobody cares about these? Or is it just we're in a little bit of a rut right now because we haven't had that next on this generation? We haven't had that next division. We haven't had a Division 3 or something like that.
I think we're in for some kind of live service crash, like not like a crash, but like a mini thing where a good chunk of these are just going to suddenly stop service and we're going to just stop caring for a while. But I think there's a future for however many of these that aren't completely cynical cash grabs to keep persisting.
I think I'm much more optimistic for their future. There's always going to be those games that don't find their audience, but I think especially when everything is so fucking expensive today, when something can be picked up and tried for completely free, I think there's always going to be a market for that. And I actually think that we're going to continue to greatly see that free-to-play model expand kind of hand in hand with the live service thing throughout this generation.
Overwatch 2 is going to be free-to-play, right? Which to me was just kind of a shocker, So yeah, we're really embracing that kind of thing. Okay.
Andre, what was that coaster you were keeping on top of your microwave?
Oh, it's made by Gearbox. What was it? Battleborn.
Yeah.
me and Vin played because the entire game is offline now, even the campaign. Me and Vin played the campaign like a week before, like it went offline, just to say we did. Oh boy, that was something. It wasn't the worst. It was just like the whole game was just like, why? That's a big example of a big old flop. But here's the thing, though. I usually don't think about that one because Battleborn isn't a bad game. Anthem is a bad game. Battleborn isn't bad, just no one cared.
See, that's where I think this crash is coming from, because how many of these can we all really take as a consuming public?
They'll keep giving them to us until it breaks. Honestly, they're going to find out.
Do you guys remember Lawbreakers that Cliff Bleszinski did?
Yes.
I think they said that had like 16 active players like 2 weeks after launch.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? You know what my introduction to Lawbreakers was? I was watching a video on YouTube or something, and the ad was for Lawbreakers. I had never heard of it before. And so I wasn't really paying attention to the TV or whatever, and I just hear this super edgy language. What the fuck are you assholes doing? Let's get out there and kick some ass. Like all this like random cussing. I was like, whoa, you don't usually hear that like in a YouTube like ad, right? So I looked at it, I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, Lawbreakers? Okay, edgy guys, whatever. Oh my god. You know what really sunk him too is that he talks so much shit about Overwatch. Oh my god. He was like, he always had some dig at Overwatch whenever he was hyping up Lawbreakers. I'm like, bro, you are, my god. And then for it to come out and flop like that, oh yeah, maybe I'm changing my mind. Maybe Lawbreakers is the funniest. Like
Lawbreakers was funny.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, but I'll never forget
that ad you've seen. Probably cost more to run than that in that one go than that game made in revenue the entire time.
But see, again, that also, like, the people who played Lawbreakers, it didn't seem that bad. It's just that how many of those can we have on the market, especially competing with other free-to-play ones like Paladins or like whatever, right? Like, how many of those can we have? So you're right.
Yeah, maybe going back to that question, we'll have less of them. They'll just be more prolific.
Yeah. Evolve. Remember Evolve, the Turtle Rock? Like Steve staring at me like crazy. I think it was made by the Left 4 Dead guys. And it was like, you're the monster. One side is the monster, and then the other side is like four people trying to kill the monster.
One person plays as the monster, and everybody else doesn't. I think.
It was like asymmetrical, like multiplayer.
I don't
Steve
remember
is just
this.
staring at me like I'm crazy. Yeah, Evolve was another one too.
They kind of took that model for Doom Eternal's online multiplayer.
Yeah, which actually works. That's actually pretty good stuff. Okay, let's move on, Kevin. And I'm glad you put this in here because honestly, I really wouldn't have thought of it for some reason. But the mid-gen hardware refreshes, basically PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, still one of the funniest names I've heard. Um, so what do you think of its impact of that stuff last generation? Is that a positive or negative effect on, I guess, the market back then and the market now? What are your overall thoughts on that whole type of release, Kevin?
I think in hindsight it's going to be looked at as a mistake, but by the console manufacturers. I mean, Microsoft's was already, and part of this has to do with poor naming conventions, but was already getting messy last time. But I think the further we go down this path, and this generation, we've seen at launch them launch with two separate and distinct models each. It's going to get a little bit confusing for the average consumer. Now maybe I'm being a little bit reactive, but I don't think it's unreasonable to think that we have the two different models at launch, and then we have a mid-gen refresh, and maybe we get mid-gen refreshes of digital only and disc-based PS5, and we get series E and F for Xbox, and then they start doing gradual revamps to them. I think it is going to get too confusing for mom and dad to buy little Jimmy these consoles at Christmas time, and they're going to wind up with a fucking Xbox One S that was found under the bin at Walmart. It wasn't that bad last gen, but I think that it'll be interesting to see throughout this generation. There's only so much they can do before everything just starts feeling like it's falling apart a little bit.
The Xbox Fairchild Channel F or something like that. The Xbox Towns Marty. Steve, I don't know. What do you think, Steve? Obviously you didn't really participate in that stuff to begin with. But...
I participated in mid console half upgrade shenanigans. We called it the new Nintendo 3DS XL.
I actually think that's the shittiest of all of the shit, because that actually had exclusive games that you could only play on that. That was actually the worst.
Is there two exclusive games though?
Okay, but then you couldn't play SNES Virtual Console unless you had a new 3DS and stuff. And it's just why? Okay, the one I got
tech wise, I think it was. I think the 3D was a lot better on the new 3DS than it was.
That little nub, satisfied my Monster Hunter addictions at the time. So anyway.
Go ahead.
The satisfying little nub.
Thank you, Kevin, for picking up the ball. Anyway. But anyway, despite my participation, I do kind of miss when we could just buy the console and know, yep, this is the only thing I'm going to need for this generation for the next 5 to 6 years. We're not all reading the system specs all day on a list. Sometimes we just want to buy the games and go home. And despite all this, and despite Kevin's beliefs that someone's going to think it's a mistake, this isn't going anywhere. They're going to keep going with this. Just because I think it's going to be a little easier to iterate on hardware and say some of this might work and some of this might not in an increasingly digital marketplace than it is if things are actually on the shelf. It's going to be messy, but I guess we're all going to just have to put up with it.
Well, obviously, hardware revisions are no joke. Now, the specs didn't change, but we've been doing that since NES, right? Everything gets a late generation refresh, but I didn't like the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X stuff back then. I still don't like it now, though I think I disagree with both of you in regards to how much a market changing impact it has, because I don't think it really matters. We still buy the box that plays the games and we're satisfied, right? I never, even my frame rate hunting ass. I never felt compelled to be like, oh boy, I better get a PS4 Pro because like I'm going to miss out on whatever. No, the only reason why I got a PS4 Pro is because my original launch model died. It died in the middle of me playing Bloodstained, which was very sad. Bloodstained comes out, and 2 days later, my shit overheats and dies. Like, it was the worst. I even tried, it was so sad. I even tried moving the PS4 across the room and putting it directly in front of the AC unit so I could get, like, I don't know, a good 45 minutes of play before it died while playing Bloodstained again. But anyway, that sucked. But that's the only reason why I got a PS4 Pro. I don't think these matter too much. The specs aren't worth it for like people to go chasing for it unless you're Digital Foundry or you just really need that refresh.
Or you're Andre at a birthday party.
Oh my God. Is the birthday party the new like Yoshi story now? Like it's just I'm gonna like I destroy every birthday party where like God.
Yes, you're the birthday party ruiner.
Oh my God. I didn't ruin it. I politely excused myself and went home. I didn't step on the cake. I didn't throw the cake at Vince's mom or whatever.
Fucking birthday kids were crying after you left because they felt like their Super Nintendo ports were inadequate.
Well, they are. Don't play shit. Like I mean, we could play something that's actually good that's made for Super Nintendo, not Killer Instinct. Anyway, so like, yeah, even me, I'm like, I don't know. I don't really care. And I don't think most people do either. I think people just bought the refreshes because they needed a new system or they just had a whim. They just had some money burning a hole in their pocket. I don't feel like it's a big deal. Will we get them this generation? I think absolutely, because that PS5 is going to slim down, baby. This is going to be the slimmest console in slim history compared to the behemoth that it is now. So yeah, not a big deal to me. It's fine. Buy the box, play the box. It's fine.
So when we were hashing this out in the notes, I came up with this theory. I'm going to run by you and see if I'm onto anything. I feel like if you buy one console at launch and then both Sony and Microsoft do a mid-gen upgrade, not just a revision, you're more likely to buy, if you bought the PS5 first and then Microsoft doesn't, they both do upgrades, you're more likely to buy the Microsoft upgrade than just an upgraded version of your own console or the console you already have, therefore giving whoever's in second place at the time an edge by doing these upgrades. Is that fair to say?
I think that's true. I never really thought about it that way before, but yeah, I think you could be correct on that. Because, like, if I were ever inclined to buy an Xbone, which I was not, it would have been an Xbone X. It would have been, God, do you remember the press? What was it, 2017 or 18, where they announced it? I remember watching one of those giant bomb, like they're watching the conference and they're peanut gallerying it as they're watching it. I remember when he said Xbox One X, and then the entire panel just started laughing uproariously just because it was like, guys, you can't just add X to like, oh my God, it was just it was hilarious.
I feel like it was that was slightly overshadowed because all of the press around that was like everybody was talking about teraflops for a solid week after that announcement.
My God. it was obnoxious. I never heard the word teraflops more in my life. But
I can assume though, if for either of you, if you've already got PS5s, if on same day PS 5.5 and Xbox Series X.5 launch at the same price, and you've got the extra cash in your pocket, makes more sense to go for the Xbox.
Yeah, you're right. If I were going to get one, it would have been X. But yeah, of course, Steve has all the consoles. He just didn't tell us.
Steve doesn't have that kind of cash burning a hole in his pocket at any given time.
Not anymore, because you bought all the consoles, buddy.
Steve has the Switch from 2017 and the PS5 from recently.
I mean, you don't have to ruin fine. Jeez. I was trying to fluff you up like you were Mr. Moneybags over here, just spilling money all over the bar, buying every console.
I don't need our listeners coming to our house looking to sponge cash that I don't have.
He's just being humble. Go ask for that cash.
Go ask for that cash. In fact, we're going to take a break. I want everybody listening to this at Monotone Gent on Twitter. At him. Give me the cash, boy. Give him your Cash App name, your Venmo name, your PayPal account, whatever. Ask him for the cash. We'll be right back. Oh my God, we're back again, motherfucker.
What kind of sexy thing did we do during the break this time, Andre?
Oh, I can't tell everybody that this time. The shower was steamy enough. I think I'll have to leave the rest to our Patreons that we don't have.
I'm gonna need another shower after that break.
Oh yeah, after this, oh boy, we need to get clean so we can get dirty. I'm telling you, this show is somebody's fetish. I don't know whose, but it's somebody's. Okay, so obviously we got to talk about not just Game Pass, but subscription-based model stuff. I guess this can include Nintendo Switch Online if you want, I guess, maybe to a degree, or, stuff like that. So Sony is leaning into like a different style of subscription model. It's not as bare bones as Nintendo. It's not full on like Game Pass. I would say it's somewhere in the middle, but honestly, I think it's just really left of center. I think it's just not like anything else. What do you see the future of any of these? Is Sony going to ramp it up? Is Microsoft going to tone it down? What are the next few years going to play out like, Kevin?
I don't know. I'm curious to see how well Sony's new PlayStation Plus does, because it's definitely got a significantly lower focus on day one AAA exclusives as Game Pass does. And if it's as financially successful as Game Pass is, I guess taking into account for like how many subscribers versus how many consoles, I am curious, does that maybe incentivize Microsoft to say maybe we can reduce the amount of day one AAA stuff showing up on Game Pass? Maybe the next Elder Scrolls game, you actually need to go out and buy it rather than just have a Game Pass subscription, or maybe they keep doing what they're doing in a attempt to try and increase their relevance when they're in second place.
Yeah, I feel like that day has to come. Because let me start here, actually. I think this is going to depend, all of this stuff is what we consider to be ownership going forward. Like in the movie space, right? You only buy Blu-rays if you're some sort of collector, or you're like me, where you don't really have like Netflix or whatever, and you only watch a few movies, so you're just going to buy the movies that you care about. In the movie space, we've given up ownership, right? We don't care. We just watch movies online, right? Or we go to the movies and we watch them. We don't care if we buy them anymore. That's out of the picture. We may get there with video games too, because that's always the thing. Oh, you don't own your games. You just whatever. Who cares? If in convenience is king, right? In all these instances, that's what it always comes down to. That's what we talked about buying digital games too. So when it comes to the subscription model based stuff, I feel like we're going to get there with that, but not everyone's going to feel that way. There's always going to be physical games, just like there's always going to be Blu-rays, Kevin.
I want to rudely interject here, because, and I feel like I'm going to get dangerously close to teetering on the edge of that SpongeBob font alternating capitals preservation talk that we make fun of.
Yeah,
but I don't think I think it's very much not a one-to-one comparison talking about movies versus games, because movies are very easy to carry forward. I don't think it's obviously there's licensing stuff here and there, but you don't require certain technology in a platform. You're going to be, if as long as somebody can produce the license for a specific movie and there's demand for it, it's going to easily be available in 20 years. We can't say the same about a PlayStation 3 game. We're not always going to have that PlayStation Plus service that's saying, hey, we're going to bring you these specific PS3 games. These things are much more easily lost to time, and I think that's what gets a little bit scarier with the subscription-based model to me, because it's more challenging to produce some of that legacy content if the demand is there anyways.
You are correct.
Make sense?
You are correct. It is not a apples to apples comparison. I was just talking about in terms of just purely ownership, because those people always say you don't own the games. I want to own my games, right? And my position is always, so fucking what? That's all I was saying. Mm-hmm. Those same people will not say the same thing about movies. If you really care about ownership of the material things, then don't pay $10 a month or whatever it is to Netflix every month. Then go buy everything on Blu-ray, right? If you want to be consistent, be consistent. That's all I was saying. You know what I mean? I'm just saying the ownership
I agree
angle
with you.
doesn't matter that much.
I get the ownership thing. I think just separate. There's a separate discussion to be had as far as accessibility.
Yes, absolutely. Steve, these subscription. I'm sorry to wake you up. These subscription models. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think there's a future in the what I keep saying it as if we're not living in the future in a way, but the way Sony's doing it, where you have a handful of games sometimes coming out day one, like Stray, and the rest of it's just acting as an archive. I mean, that I could see that keep persisting, especially as just to appeal to customers as time goes on. I'm more I wouldn't say concerned, just skeptical on how something like Game Pass works, where we're just flinging out everything out the door right away.
They do it because they can afford to. Microsoft can, but that's why I'm dying to know how Game Pass works financially. I want to know so bad. It is the biggest mystery in the world. Of course, they'll never tell us, but I want to fucking know, man. How long
claim
can they
it's
do
profitable. Do you think they're just flat out lying about that?
How many? I don't know, man. How many people are actually subscribed? How many? They can't keep paying for, like, let's say like Final Fantasy 16 wasn't a PS5 exclusive. Could they really afford to be like, hey, Square, let's just have this on day one Game Pass? Like, at some point, you gotta stop giving away the store to be respected, I guess. Because the entire reason why Game Pass started was because out of desperation. They were getting their ass whooped by Sony and Nintendo at that point because of Switch, and we're like, we need something. And that's why it always, I guess this is kind of a little bit of an aside, that's why it always ultimately pisses me off when people compare the PlayStation Plus to Game Pass. And it's like Sony's answer to Game Pass. Sony doesn't have to answer anything. Sony is the industry leader. They don't have to play ball with Game Pass. They're on top. Microsoft is the one who has to play ball with Sony. They have to catch up. So it's not on Sony to be like, what are they going to do? They don't have to do anything. I guess that's an aside. But like, yeah, at some point, you're right. Can they say, hey, we can't have Elder Scrolls 6 on Game Pass on day one. We can't have Fallout 5. Like, I mean, we just can't keep giving this stuff away.
I honestly don't think the PlayStation Plus with extra with cheese plan is meant to compete directly with with Game Pass. I think someone looked at the numbers, they drew up, okay, how much do you think we can make on subscriptions, and how much do we really make when we plunge these prices down to $10 for certain games a year across platforms? And they said this might just be a better idea if we do that this way for a while. And I think there's going to be more of this sort of thing across different companies as we go along. Ubisoft already has one. EA's already got Origin. And even Nintendo's being dragged in kicking and streaming, on the Switch with all their older platforms with the really long name apps. I mean, I think it's going to be like almost like how all the streaming services may be only sort of replace cable after a while. Like, we're going to have to start picking and choosing. Well, do we really want all these different platforms, apps, things on our consoles? There's going to be more of this coming. Sit tight.
Yep, we're in an interesting spot with it. But as far as last generation goes, yeah, like Sony obviously didn't even try, right? They were just kept doing their couple PlayStation games a month, one for Vita up until like damn near 2019. You know what I mean? Like they just kept trucking along with that. It's not like Game Pass put them in the poorhouse. Oh God, they're giving away like Halo 5 and yada yada. It's like, well, so what? we're Sony, right?
And the way Sony is doing it is fairly smart. They are taking something like Stray, right? That's kind of a loss leader just to support the bulk of the catalog that's already made its day one sales.
The catalog.
And is just kind of, legacy content at this point.
Yeah, and it's working. Because, boy, the internet is ablaze about Stray. If that was just a pure marketing strategy as a game, it worked. Yeah, and Game Pass will have those too. They have their, I don't know, Ori and the Blind Forest or whatever gets, everybody ablaze. But
almost everything is a loss leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that they don't have old things, but there's nothing big that's not a loss leader.
Exactly. Like, oh God, I mean, it seems inconceivable to just give away Halo Infinite, right? It just not give away. Obviously, you're paying a subscription service, but you know what I mean. Like, it boggles my mind how that's true. But whatever, here we are. Right?
I would love to see in comparison Microsoft versus Sony's software income from actual sales excluding subscription services over the last 2 years.
Yeah,
I bet you Microsoft is sitting at maybe 10% of what Sony's pulled in.
I would imagine that would be the case too. God, those are financials I want to know so bad. I guess we won't. But
we'll never see that.
Unfortunately. But I guess to sort of wrap this up a little bit, wrap-ish, I was going to say, but that's not a word at all. We just have some general questions. I guess we'll start with Kevin.
Yeah, so we've seen a number of companies even recently trying to push into the console space, and nobody's really had success. Google and Amazon have tried doing cloud gaming. Facebook and HTC have tried doing VR, and then Atari and Intellivision, or the dead husks of these companies that somebody bought out, has tried doing this simplified throwback material. What do you guys think it would actually take for someone to be able to weasel their way into that market? And do you have any thoughts about what the company is that would have a good run at it?
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, it's going to take the same thing it took for Microsoft to show up. It's going to take a respected name in tech, a lot of money, and more importantly than any of that, the willingness to stick around even after it doesn't work out at first, because Xbox did not quite, jive with everybody at first. I still get a laugh whenever I flip through magazines or someone posts online pictures of the one Japanese guy at the store buying an Xbox. Every time. I wonder if it's the same guy. For anyone.
He's got Japan's only complete Xbox collection.
Of 37 games or something.
Well, no, just of 4 consoles.
Oh, okay.
Not of games.
Oh, okay. Forget about the games. That's negligible. Yeah.
Honestly, the only company I could even see sort of maybe doing this is Apple. Maybe. Kind of. But that's really stretching it, because honestly I felt like Steam boxes had a shot when they tried that a few years ago. But
I did too. I thought that was going to be a bigger deal than it was.
We all know that it didn't, that they fell right on their face with that. So that's my guess.
Yeah, I do think that it seems from all accounts that what I've heard that I'm blanking on the name, the handheld Steam.
Oh, Steam. Oh, Jesus
Steam
Christ. Deck. Yeah.
Steam Deck. Yeah, I think that's doing fairly well, and people seem to be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, that seems to be doing okay. It's not a bad. It's a much better idea than Steam Box ever was in retrospect.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of see it as, it feels like everybody is afraid to try at this rate. So we keep getting all these scared half measures like Ouya and Atari VCS and Amico, which is never materializing, right? We just keep getting stuff like that. We never really get that full, nobody's actually dipping their toe in, since Microsoft did 20 years ago. So I don't know, man. People always say Sega, but that company's depleted. Nobody fucking works there anymore, I would imagine. And if you're under 25, you don't remember Sega as a legitimate like console maker. Maybe even if you're not like under 30. So like, I don't know. It's a name, but I don't know how much that matters unless you're old.
Okay, even if you are that young and you happen to see, you went to Uncle Andre's house and you saw his Sega Genesis Mini, and like, oh, neat. Sega, I don't think Sega themselves even has the money or the positive association with the customer to make a console anymore.
No, Dreamcast flopped purely because like they pissed everyone off already with 32X and Saturn or whatever. Dreamcast was a great console that was fated from the get-go because everyone was sick of Sega's shit, and rightfully so. Right? Now that was a long time ago. But I'm just saying, like, in recent years, they've just built up, I don't know, they just kind of exist like any other publisher does, right? So as far as like, I don't know, a 20-year-old is concerned, who gives a fuck that they made a Sega Genesis? They only know because there's like a Sega Genesis Mini and shit like that, right? Mm-hmm. That's the only reason because like
those guys that did that app on the Nintendo Switch Online.
Who, M2? Yeah. Yeah, like but yeah, I just don't see anyone breaking into this space right now because they're scared to. Although I wish somebody would. Steve's right. I wish an Apple or not like fucking Amazon Luna or Google. I always say Stadia. You know what I mean? All these half measures make a real thing. Somebody, but nobody will.
All right. Okay. I'm ready to go because you guys are going to tell me I'm stupid, especially directly following that. I don't think that we're ever going to see anybody else come in the console space, and I don't think it's right around the corner. We had this discussion like 2 years ago, and you guys berated me like I was an idiot, but I still stand by it. I don't think that we are that far. It's certainly not right around the corner, but I don't think we're that far from cloud gaming actually becoming viable. We always talk about like the severely lacking infrastructure. That's really the holdback here. Sooner or later, it's going to be Starlink is ubiquitous, or somebody else comes out with a viable competitor. I think, maybe 5-10 years from now, that infrastructure problem is going to be solved. And I think we just need to see the right company to capitalize it at that time, not way too early, like Stadia and Luna did. And I think that there's a chance that it kind of pushes the whole industry in that direction. We know that Microsoft is interested in that space too. And I think sooner or later I'm certainly not calling this, but I don't even know that I think it's insane to say that the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and whatever, maybe Nintendo is not part of the discussion, but this might be the last generation we see of traditional home console market, and it just lasts for a long time. I don't know.
I don't see that happening. Not anytime soon. 5 to 10 years sounds very soon. If we're going to get there, it's not going to be, I'm going to be an old man. Like I feel like I'm going to be.
Well, that could be next year.
I mean, it's already now. Kevin, but no.
Kevin, I want you to be right that everything is finally going to catch up to the rest of the world in 5 to 10 years. I have zero faith in this. I just don't. Everyone gets between bureaucracy and everyone else just dragging their feet. It's just not going to happen where cloud gaming's finally going to work everywhere.
Well, just so you guys know, when we're doing the PS5 and Series X retrospective in 10 years, I'm going to be a real fucking arrogant jerk about how I was right.
Oh, you're going to I told you so us to death. Like, we're going to get I told you so off the fucking show.
Look, if
insufferable.
If I've got free cloud gaming in 2032, I will take all the I told you so's you got.
You guys should be glad I didn't know you, like, 10 years ago, because I would have been like, so I told you so about Wii U, which is actually, I swear to God, I didn't plan this. I swear, audience, I'm not this organized. I swear that did not, it was just the next thing on the sheet. I didn't even think about it, but I actually do want to talk about Wii U real quick. We've been keeping this pretty PS4 Xbone focused because that's the interesting part, but also the death of the Wii U is so well covered. What the hell is there to say, right? Like, but I do want to tackle it from one angle to you guys. Did you think it was going to be a success? Wii U, maybe a mid-level disappointment, maybe a total flop. I thought it was a terrible idea from the beginning. I thought it was going to flop, and it did. What did you guys think? Let's start with Steve. Did you really think Wii U was going to be it?
No, I thought we were going to have something more akin to the N64, where it wasn't as popular as NES and Super NES, but it had an audience and it had some people developing for it, and there'd be support from some studios that we'd be like, oh boy, there they are. They got something for us on this drive season. No. And, we all know what happened. They gave too much people credit to understand the concept. And then they put it out in stores 2 months in advance, which I thought was smart. And then they only gave us one game to try, which was Rayman Legends. Yeah, that's how you show off this new concept. A fucking side scroller.
And then it went multi-platform.
I like Rayman Legends, but that's not how you show off this new this quote unquote innovative thing you were trying to make.
And on top of that, New Super Mario Bros. U is like the premier game at the time as well.
Yeah, the fourth New Super Mario Brothers game and the second one that year. Here's your launch game.
I dug me some Miiverse, and it was the perfect platform for someone who needed to play catch up on some of the Wii games I didn't finish yet, and just wasn't having the time to play all the games I ever wanted to play at the time. But it's like, I own a smoker right now, and that's what owning a Wii U was like. It was a money investment, and you gotta buy little components to make it work, like an extra hard drive, and more shit to go with it. Oh yeah, if you didn't have a Wii beforehand, you gotta bring your extra Wiimotes with you. There was an investment that went into buying that little thing. It was fine, but I couldn't do Wii U again.
Kevin, did you think it was gonna blow up? Like, what did you think the success level of this was gonna be?
I sure didn't think it was going to blow up. I didn't think it was going to do remotely what the Wii did. But I didn't think it was going to do as poorly as it did either. Now, to be fair, I really don't think that the concept of the console is what damaged it. Obviously, the early marketing was shitty. I watched that E3 presentation and I felt confused about what this was. But I don't think that was the nail in the coffin by any stretch of the imagination. I really think if they had more of a reliable stream of software that was coming out and better third-party support, it could have done a lot better. So I don't think it could have been expected at that time that it would have done as poorly as it did, because I still don't think it was a horrible concept. I think definitely we've talked about kind of how, tablets were right around the corner, and that Wii U gamepad looked pretty dated, 6 months after launch almost. But I still think that it was the long-term software problem that really brought that console down.
Yeah, I think I expected it, and you're right. I didn't think Wii U as a conceptual idea was terrible. In fact, I've said many times, I like the gamepad. I like the idea of it. I like holding it. I like using it too. I actually really do like it. It's just that you can't make a whole console based around that, especially at the time, and you're going to be so power deficient on top of it. You really got to make that stuff hum and sing. And like, if you're going to cheap out on the hardware side, as Nintendo has been for 20 years, you can't do it. And on top of that, I was already feeling Nintendo was in a rut software wise, especially after it was very clear the best stuff on Wii was the stuff that was supposed to be on GameCube in those first few years of the console's life. And then after that, like,
it was,
what the hell happened? I mean, we had Mario Galaxy 2, but that was already like an established thing, right? And that's how that played out. And I didn't have any hope of that software getting any better. I just kind of felt like they were in a bad place, and they continued to be in a bad place for most of the Wii U's life cycle. I mean, look at the heavy hitters there. I mean, I'm sorry, right? I mean, go up and down the list. I'm not saying it was a total loss. At the same time, I didn't think they would bring the goods. So, favorite PS4 X-Bone game, Kevin, do you have one? I think by default, I kind of have to say Destiny, as we've been talking about throughout this, but
I always talk about God of War on the show, and I do really love that game. Honestly, thinking back, I think I got the most out of Red Dead 2, and I feel a little bit conflicted about that because that game really had some issues that I think it deserves some heavy critiquing for. But overall, that was like a borderline religious experience I had with that game. I had a solid 2 weeks that I was just completely enamored, and I was very sad with that game when it was over. That was one I did not want to move on from at all. Did either of you wouldn't have played that? Hey, Steve, did you play that, Andre?
No, I did not. I've never played a Red Dead anything. So yeah, it's got to be Destiny for me, just because, man, that hit all the notes. I still, no matter how I feel about Destiny 2 and the way that went down, and still continues to go down, unfortunately, the first game is some of the best implementation of art I've seen in a video game, in my opinion, ever. Like, I was talking about, like, my high artistic points for me, like MDK or Killer 7 or things like that hit all the notes for me. Destiny was one of those. And it had the gameplay to back it up, and it was just so fun to log in every day, to even just to do dailies or just dick around, right? Like, I loved being in that game world, and I just don't think that can be topped for me personally. It's got to be Destiny.
I want to explore that aesthetic thing a little bit more, because honestly, I don't think of that game as having a real super unique or special look to it. What did you like about it so much?
It was everything. It's hard to pin down one thing, but like every helmet on every, like, what are they called? Guardians. Like everything looks so lived in and fun. Obviously it's like 700 years after some event happened or whatever. So it looks a little post-apocalyptic, but it doesn't look crazily so, you know what I mean? Not everything is destroyed, and the things that are destroyed are so much fun to explore, because usually you see stuff that are high technology that get destroyed, and it's like, it doesn't hit the same way that Destiny does, because you go into those places and they feel so familiar in a way that most other things don't, because if other things are in quote unquote space or whatever, they're very foreign to us, right? They look like a space station, like Alien, right? Or they look like a spaceship or something we'll never experience. Destiny doesn't feel too far off. It's the most realistic depiction I have seen of something of like the far future that doesn't feel completely foreign from us. So there was like a direct connection. Plus all the font choices and all the everything, what you remember, the things that you can attach to your name on Destiny, like your banner, like what are they called, like the icon, all of those are completely my type of art style. Shit, I should rip some of those off for Fine Time, but like plenty of them had triangles. It just, I don't know, every bit of art and style in that game just was correct and on point for me. So no, there isn't some like overarching thing I could say this is why, but every single category they hit upon for me. That's the best way I could say it.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I just really like Dinkbot would have been an acceptable answer.
Dinklebot was great. They should have never. I mean, you want to talk about like losing stuff to time? Not that there isn't a million videos of Dinklebot, but yeah, it's got to be that for me. Is there a most disappointing game? Because I have an answer off the top of my head, and I don't even have to think about it. I want you to, if you got one, disappointing or worst.
Let me think about this for a minute. You go ahead.
Okay, mine is absolutely The Evil Within. I fucking hated that game. I was so excited because of Shinji Mikami's back to making survival horror, blah blah blah, right? New company, new whatever, new system. I thought that game was terrible. Like, it just, on every aspect, from a survival horror perspective, from a like level design perspective, story, I hated it, guys. I was so excited for it, and it sucked. So that's mine. It's got to be Evil
Yeah, I don't know.
Within.
I got nothing. I don't have anything that really sticks out as being disappointing.
Steve really wanted to like Paper Mario Sticker Star, but he
Oh no,
just couldn't.
there were worse games in that generation than Sticker Star, and literally all of them are called Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival.
Is that a game though? Does that qualify as a game?
They sold it in a store and put it on a disc. It was a game.
I don't know.
If we can retrofit Switch into being in this generation, and then also consider a port, I can sit here and complain for another half an hour about Skyward Sword if you guys would like.
Oh no! I mean, look, I'm always down to complain about Skyward Sword, but I don't think this is the place. Place to do
right.
that.
I agree. I just hate it.
I mean, you should. I hate it.
To borrow an Andreism, Sticker Star was fucking K, and I'm perfectly fine saying that a decade later.
I feel like you said fucking K first on our previous creative endeavor, and I just stole it from you. I feel like you did, and then I just kind of made it mine. I feel like it was yours first. I'm not going to go back and listen to find out, but I'm pretty sure you.
Well, I did.
You guys can share it.
I did take saying the whole name of certain apps with long names from you, so I guess it's okay that we're borrowing from each other.
Okay, that's fine. I don't know, Kevin, did that Quantum Break, were you really let down by that? I don't know why I made you a Quantum Break fanboy for some reason. I don't know.
Maybe I should put Quantum Break on the coming up list.
Okay. Well, let's cap this off with one more thing. Just, I guess we can get very broad with this. What do you guys think is the defining trait or just feel of the past generation? I guess we'll go. Well, let's start with you, Kevin. Let's start with you. What the defining, just the feel you get the most when you think back about those 7 years.
Yeah, I really do think about that generation as having video games actually having matured at that time. And we've been talking about, video games maturing since the 2000s, right? During GameCube, PS2, and Xbox, maturing meant dick and fart jokes and burning down weed farms and, shit like that. That was more like the angsty teenager years. And then all of a sudden maturing in the 360 and PS3 generation was everything was like brown and gray and like kind of edgy, but it was also like deep and introspective and, like moody music being played over like weird fucking vague trailers kind of thing. Mm. This generation, it actually, I guess for one, I feel like gaming become more of a legitimate art form accepted to people that aren't into video games. I feel like video games are now looked at to some degree on the same level as film and television. I think it's a legitimate vehicle for storytelling, much more than it even was the previous generation where we were like starting to dip into that a little bit more seriously. And it doesn't feel forced into saying, hey, look how mature I am. It can still be lighthearted and fun without feeling like there wasn't as much concern with like, oh, well, that feels kiddie and maybe doesn't belong here, whatever. It was more overarching. Video games are video games, not video games need to be, this pushing into this mature direction. And that in itself made it feel more mature.
Oh, wow. Really well said. I totally agree with that pretty much 100%. I guess I'll go next. So when the generation started, by the way, what I didn't say about the previous gen, I was so ready for the 360 to be fucking over because like by like 2010, 2011, every game just ran like shit. Like they were just trying to push so much stuff outside of their means, PS3 as well. And it was just like, I cannot wait for new hardware. I am so sick of this shit. So I was very ready for this PS4, Expo, whatever to begin. And when it did, at first, it almost felt like a refinement era, sort of. That's how I always referred to like PS2, Xbox, and Cube. We weren't really doing a whole lot of innovation. We were just refining the previous generation, selling off the rough edges of 3D development or whatever, and just really understanding what we're doing in that space. To me, that's kind of what that generation was about. And I thought, in a way, this generation would be about that too. And it kind of was at first. But then, as I said, we get to like the live service stuff. We get to Even bringing back stuff that we had before, like remasters even took like a whole another level, because we weren't really doing the remaster stuff in the previous gen. I mean, maybe just like a little bit, but this generation, we had the technology to really boost stuff way beyond what we could do before. And that sort of like, I don't want to say remake culture, but you know what I mean? Like that sort of stuff started popping up, which I really appreciate. I know a lot of people are down on, oh, well, we do, remasters and remakes, and there's a lot of them nowadays, but I think that's fine. So we did a lot of looking back with the technology that we have now with the live service stuff. To me, like I said earlier, just the defining mark to me of this generation is that. And yeah, and then as we went along, like you said, things became like, considered by other people a legitimate art form much more than they ever were before. And we stopped being afraid to be fucking weird. Like, remember, like, I don't know, a game like Shadows of the Damned that would come out last generation, and it's just like EA gets into publishing it, and then all the reviewers are like, well, what is this? You know what I mean? Expecting some sort of, EA single player extravaganza. It's like, no, it's Suda51 and Shinji Mikami having a fuck off time, right? I think that kind of stuff was much more accepted in this generation because the audience was there for it. And not just a bunch of people being like, I don't understand this. That's also legitimizes the art, to what you were saying. Mm-hmm. It's not just here's all the AAA, because AAA stuff, the only thing that you get accepted is like Gears of War or Uncharted or something, right? Now you have room for that other weird shit. There's room for everybody to enjoy what they liked. And that's what I think that last generation really proved to everybody. So that's kind of what I think about.
I guess I just take games differently than all you guys, because what I noticed more about this last generation more than any of those other things is that I feel like this is where we all became a bigger video gamer community with the internet, somewhere between social media and streaming and those share buttons. Man, just we all found each other a bit more, and it's brought out the best and worst in people. I say we are the game community now. We exist, and we got us some opinions.
Yeah, I think that's totally legitimate. You're absolutely right. The community is much greater, but somehow more tight knit as a whole.
The share button changed the world. I know that sounds like a really ridiculous thing to say, like the statement to make, but I really think it's true. What I said at the top, like, I think that share button on the PlayStation 4 did so much for everything. Oh, look at this cool thing I did in the video game. Oh, look at this cool shot I got of whatever, photo modes, everything. Like, we share that stuff with each other in such a seamless fashion now. Like, it's incredible. I'm sorry, I know it's goofy.
Me, but I like the ability to take snapshots and share stuff, but if I'm being honest, secretly, I'm always like, come on, just bring back start and select. I don't even want fucking plus and minus. I want start and select back.
I want to edit you out of this entire. I think everything you just said now fine. Is invalid. I feel like we can just dub you over. The part of Kevin is now being played by anybody.
Start and select were just iconic.
Okay, well, go listen to the Start and Select podcast, Select and Start podcast by our friend Kiefer, and I'm sure he'll love you for that. Actually, go listen to that anyway. It's a great podcast.
You should.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess that's it. Now that I'm good and mad at Kevin, I guess we can end this. I don't know, guys. You know what to do. Find Time Podcast on Twitter. Follow us there. Look in the bio. You can follow the three of us. Our names are in that bio. Check the description of this podcast to also follow us on Twitter at Find Time Podcast and our personal accounts. See you next time, guys. Bye.